So this video is going to be on the tree behavior, and what we're going to do is create a table based on the tree behavior and a Bootstrap 5 Navbar that will use the hierarchically arranged records to create menus in CakePHP. As you can see, we're going to use a special URL for Cake endpoints, and we're also going to use some of the methods that we can use with the tree behavior in a table that's configured for it. So let's get started. I'm just going to close that and let's have a look at where we're starting from. So we're starting from a very default CakePHP installation. So here we have, to start, we've got to configure a database. Now typically you might hard code this, but it is also nice. Cake has this nice feature in bootstrap.php, so that's under the config directory, where you can use php-dotenv to substitute environment variables into Cake while you're developing, and it means that it makes it a lot easier to maintain stuff in a .env file. So notice there it says config.env, so if that exists. So we've already created one here called .env in the config file, and we'll just set database URL to be this SQLite database here. And one thing we need to do, I've got this set so that it holds the database in a directory, so I'm just going to create that directory. And we've uncommented this, and now let's see if we get a connection. Yes. Now if you're wondering how I'm serving that, I'm just using the, if you have a look here, oops, just using the default Cake development server. So if we want to have a look at our database, that's another thing that we can do, is there's a Linux and a Windows and a Mac version of SQLite browser, but we can just show our database structure here. So as we can see, I'll just press F5 to refresh. There's nothing in our database at the moment. So let's get started with creating a tree enabled table, and let's go back to our terminal here. So we go bin cake bake migration, and we're going to call it add menus table, and it creates a folder and a file here underneath the config directory, migrations folder, with a time-stamped class. Now in order so that we don't spend forever doing this, just typing it in, I'm going to create a migration here that's already got everything in it. But the important parts are, the critical ones to make a tree behavior is parent underscore ID, LFT, and RGHT, as they enable the hierarchical structure within the table. We've also got a level option here, which if we have a look at the documentation, which is, it's great documentation as usual. If we scroll to here, it tells us that the parent ID and LFT columns should be indexed. So going to have a look back at our migration, we need to add an index here for these two fields. So let's do that. And I'm also, because I'm going to create a Bootstrap 5 menu, there is an option for Bootstrap 5 menus to add dividers. So we'll just do that there, create a boolean to have dividers as well. And we've got an active field and a disabled field, because we're going to show a link that's been disabled as well. So going from that point there, we come back to here. We also have a field named level, And if we scroll down in our documentation, getting closer, node level, depth. This can be handy. You can use the level option to specify the field that will save level of each node. So you can save that in the databases and use it in selects. Say I only want 2 levels, so everything less than 2, so 0 and 1 in other words, or I can do other things there. So we'll go through using this. So that's why we have a level field here. So now that we've got that, let's go bin cake migration status just to have a look. We know, and then we'll do a migrate. And looking at our browser here, and we press F5, we can see firstly, you notice that we created a left index and specified a name, and then the parent ID index that we've got here, it basically has the default name. So that's just something that you keep in mind. You can specify the name of the index you're creating. So there we have our table created. Now we're going to use Cake's bake functionality. So bin cake bake all. So we want models, views, and controllers. And when we press enter, it just says, well, specify a table. And we've now created all that. So let's go back and have a look. Now in this case, it's giving me a 500 error. So that's interesting. Why? Unable to handle the request. So let's go back to our PHP browser. Now notice here, it's saying key database URL has already been defined in getenv. So that's interesting. I don't particularly know why it's already been defined. Let's have a look and see. .env. Let's see if it's momentary. No, it isn't. So how can we fix this? Let's go into our Bootstrap PHP file. Now, for some reason, I don't know why, but it's already saying that's already defined. But now I'm going to just change this to be able to overwrite. So PHP, if it sees an environment variable, it can overwrite it. And now we go back and just reload and let's see if it works. Yes, it does. So let's now go to our menu system. And here we have the default view. Now next step is we want a navbar. So we're going to go and grab a Bootstrap navbar, and this is the example here, and this is the sample code, so I'm going to copy that in. So let's close all this, and we want to go down to our element under templates, and I'm going to create a new folder just to keep it neat, and a new file called navbar.php, and copy this in. Now we want to make that available to our template here. That's this is our layout, and so as you can see here, the current navbar is here. We might just remove all of that and then just put the nav/navbar element in its place, and have a look at that. And we now need to put some styling and make it clickable. So let's go back to the introduction here, and we've got two two things that we need. We need the CSS and the JavaScript. So I'll copy the CSS into our default layout here, and the JavaScript as well. So the bundle JavaScript gets you everything. And this is going to be kind of hideous, so let's just have a look at that result. And as you can see, it's working, but the styling is conflicting with Cake's default styling. Sorry. So I'm just going to leave the normalized template, CSS, but I'm going to comment out Cake and milligram. And now let's have a look. Right. So that's not too bad, but there's a lot of problems with the styling here. So I'm just going to make another change here and get all the goodness of Bootstrap. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to show a little bit more of the Cake way of overriding things. That might be even more useful to someone. So just getting started here, let's firstly make our table look okay. So it's menus index, and CakePHP, Bootstrap I should say, just has this option to create striped tables, so let's do that. Okay, that's now fixed that a bit. We want our new menu to be button primary and float end. So Bootstrap uses start and end, not left and right. So start and end, that's good. Now that's also a little bit naff. We want a little bit of space below our nav, so let's put margin bottom 3, just so that, okay. Now, how can we sort of influence what CakePHP is doing with some of this other styling? Just thought as a brief aside, let's have a look in the documentation and we'll have a look at pagination, and notice that we've got examples of the styling and the CSS items needed to make everything sort of styled the right way. Now at the moment, if you have a look at the index here, you see that the PaginatorHelper, when we go to the bottom, is doing all this generation of all the links. So we need to override this to make it look right. So this is just an example for you that helps. So if I go CakePHP into the Cake vendor directory in the SRC, then I go down to View, and I choose my helper, and I know that this is the PaginatorHelper, and so I choose PaginatorHelper. Then I find that there is a whole series of templates to override the behavior of CakePHP PaginatorHelper. So what I can do here is, we can do this a number of different ways, but I can firstly, let's do it closest to the change we want to make. Let's do it really close. Let's put this here. So let's go PHP this paginator set templates, and let's set them firstly to all the defaults, and then So we've got, so previous, so this previous one needs to be page item and disabled. So let's go previous, and notice here it says previous disable, and we want to change that, and then maybe we can inspect. So we've done that correctly, previous page item disabled. What's the next thing that we need? We need the A to have a page link defined. So let's do that. Previous disabled, and the A needs to have a class. So let's change that, and then go back and have a look. I think I've done next disabled, haven't I? So I need to change that. I've done the wrong thing there. So let's go next disabled, previous disabled, and get ourselves around the right way. And let's have a look at those two disabled ones. Okay, so you can see there that we're now starting to override the styling for each individual element and making it compatible with Bootstrap. And really, if you were to install the Bootstrap UI, that's all they've done in a very big way, is gone through the whole all the helpers and basically make them generate the correct markup for the Bootstrap template. This is how you would do it, just step by step for Bootstrap UI. Now, once you've done that, you can then say to yourself, well, I don't want it to be set here. I'd like it to be set for the paginator component for all my things. So I'm going to cut this out and remove it from here, and then go into SRC, go down to View, go to the App View PHP, and just choose Load Helper here, and Paginator. See there, it's wanting a config array, and I need to say templates, and then I just need to paste that in. Now, if I've done that correctly, it should maintain this. If I haven't, it will not display. So we could go through the entire bunch of links here. So we've got active and all those sorts of things, and just slowly modify. So here you see previous active, next active, all those sorts of things, and it should have a current one, which it says, sorry about that, we want page item active there for the link. So you would go in there and say, all right, just identify exactly what's needed, and see you need pretty much page link on every single one of these, so a class of page link. So you would go through and make all those changes globally by loading it into the app view folder there. Now the next thing we're going to do now is, we just had a little bit of look at fixing up different things in the menus and that sort of things. Let's now start to think about our hierarchical data and putting it into our table here. Now we can do that by just clicking the add button and manually adding a whole heap of records, but let's not really worry too much about that. Let's do a seed, create a database seed that will do the same job, because I'm going to need to continually refresh things as I delete things, as I show other detail. So let's go into just a terminal and go bin cake bake, and we want to bake a seed, and we want to call it the MenuSeed. Now, where is that stored? It's under config, under seeds, and there it says, can you please provide me with some data? And I'm going to flesh it out. Now here's an issue with auto-bake things. The table name is menus with M-E-N-U-S, and because it's trying to be correct, it's put menuses, which is wrong, so that'll cause an error. So just change that if you notice that. It's something to bear in mind. So what's involved in a menu? Well, we've got a list of our fields here. Not sure. Let me just see if I can do that. Cat. That's better, so I don't have to make it all up. So let's go ID, parent ID, left, right, and we don't need those, let's leave those out. And level is another one that will let the tree behavior sort out. We do need a name, and we do need a URL, and we want active, and finally a divider before. Alright, so ID, so let's just hard code this. Parent ID will be null. The name will be, let's make this an admin parent URL. Now the URL at the parent level can be just a hash because it's not needed, because it's not, you can't click on a parent in a Bootstrap menu and get it to go someplace. Active, we want it to be true. Disabled, now disabled will be false, and divided before will be false. So that's given us the start. Now let's start to make some children. So we're going to say the parent ID will be 1, this will be 2. We're going to make an add a menu. Now the URL is going to be weird, but it's going to be menus add. It's active, disabled, default, false, okay. And ID 3, parent will be 1, name will be admin, URL will be list menus, and this one's going to be menus index because that's our list. Active true. Let's make this one have a divider above it, and table false, and next again 4. This one's going to be an external URL, and still active, and this final one will be 5, and it's going to be at that parent level. It's going to be disabled link. So active is still true, but we want to disable it, so it's going to be grayed out or non-clickable. Now if we run this, what's going to happen, so if we go bin cake migration seed, let's have a look at what the error message is. Notice it's saying menus LFT can't be null. So you can't run a migration without going first through the tree behavior. So CakePHP, once it's enabled on a table, and to show you it being enabled, as soon as you do a bake on a table that's got LFT, right, parent ID, it automatically adds the tree behavior in. And so as soon as you then attempt to add records, in this case, because our initial migration left, there's no room for a null there, but we want to be able to add these records with a seed. So let's work at doing that. So what we need to do is we need to create a reference. So we're going to firstly pull in our locator aware trait, and that will then give us menus table equals this fetch table, and it's the menus table. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to loop through. Now what I want to also do, I want to disable this because we're not going to use it, but I do want to go before I start adding anything, I want to just truncate the table so there's nothing in it, so it clears. So this is why seeds are dangerous. You can destroy all your data. Now the next step will be doing a for each loop for each data as menu, and what we want to do is we'll grab the menus table and we want to create a new entity based on the arrays that we've got there, and then we want to, with the menus table, we want to save that entity. Now let's try that and see what it does. Now erroring out, there is no active transaction. Let's have a look and see if that actually worked. Let's have a look at browse the table. Well, it did work, but it's coming up with this error message, so it's never going to mark itself as successful if that happens. So what we can do, and I don't know why this works, we're going to go this get adapter. So adapter, and begin a transaction. So after we've finished each save, we begin a transaction. I don't know why this then works successfully, but it does. So if we now have a look at our menus here, we can see that we have in the parent column, we can see that admin is a parent of these two children. Now let's stop for a few minutes and have a look at how we can better present these things in menus so that it's obvious that they are indeed parent children. So for an example here, we've got the admin and its children menu at the same level. So let's change that so that it doesn't do that. So the first thing we can see at the moment is we've got a problem here. Notice how at the moment level is not being truthful. So level 0, this should be level 1, so should this. So in our tree behavior, why is that? Oop. Click the wrong thing. Let's just search for, okay, so node level depth. It says if you want to keep a record in the database of the level, just put this into your configuration. So we can go into the menus table, into our tree view, and specify that yes, we have that. So let's run our seed again and have a look, and we can see now that that has successfully worked. So now, where were we? We were going to make a change to display things a little bit more obviously. So let's do that. I'll just close the others of this and go here. Let's string repeat, and the string we want to repeat is going to be ampersand non-blanking space, and it's going to be 3 of those times whatever is in menu level, and then just prepend that. So let's have a look at that. That's better, and that works. So let's now do it for our lookup list. So here we have our lists here. So what we need to do here, we go into the menus controller, and in our add and our edit, we can see that we're looking up for a list, but let's look for a tree list, and we want that to be the same for both, so we'll make that a tree list there, and let's reload and see what it looks like. Okay, so at the moment, notice how it's got an underscore, but not really what we want. We really want a, so let's put a spacer in here. Now let's do that again. Non-blanking space and ×3, and that's in the wrong spot, so let's move that and put it here, and in this case let's have a look again, and maybe I need to move that to the and reload. That's better, but it's not very pretty because it's not it's escaping it and showing it as the code, so we want to change that as well. So let's go down to templates, go to add and edit. We need to do both of them, so we're going to here, let's put those on the one line, and we'll go escape equals false, and copy that and replace that as well. So now when we reload, what will we get? That's a lot better, don't you think? It sort of helps you understand what is a hierarchical and what's not. So let's now have a look at some of the methods that we can use to manipulate the table data and move it up and down and these sorts of things. Having a look in, right, so having a look here, so we've got finding a path, here we go. Notice this is important. Trees constructed with the tree behavior cannot sort by any column other than left. This because the internal representation of the tree depends on this sorting. So let's now look at reordering nodes, moving them up and moving them down. So we'll go to our menus controller, and we'll grab edit. That'll do. We'll grab the edit, and then we'll go. Actually, delete looks a little bit less wordy, so let's use that one. All right, so we're going to use this one to go up. Now with our up and down, we have, it doesn't show it here, but there's two different things we can do. We can say, if we want to move it to the right to the top of the list, just put true in the second argument, or we can put a number there. We can say move up 2. So doing that, we could say, we want, by default, we want to move 1 space. So we get the node, and then we could say move up, and just say spaces. So we could change that to true, and it would basically okay, so if it's successful, has been moved up, could not be moved up. And then once it's done that, it will just redirect back to the index. That's good. Let's make a change so that we can go down and then move down, and move has been moved down and moved up. And then finally, we're going to look at another called remove, and let's do and delete. So that's a different thing. If we have a look at here, so we can just remove a node from the tree. So if it's part of a hierarchy, it's like the second one down, and it's got children, we can first remove it from the tree so that all the children get reparented to the next available parent or move to the top level, and then we can delete it without removing the children as well. So that's what we're going to do here. So firstly, we've got the menu. So this menus and remove from tree, and here it is. And then we say delete and get rid of that. We don't need spaces. So it has been removed and deleted. And again, could not be removed and deleted. So remove and delete, down, up. Right, so let's implement them as actions. So we're going to use posts for each one of those. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to call that up, down, and RM, remove. Let's go up, down, and then we called that one remove and delete. Now let's go across, and are you sure you want to, well, that's up, down, remove. Are you sure you want to move up? Are you sure you want to move down? And are you sure you want to remove and delete? Alright, so we now have, as best we can, some ways to manipulate the trees here. So first of all, let's move the admin menu item down, and see if it works. Right, now what's the problem there? The menu has been moved down, but it stayed the same in this list. Now this is something that's really important to know, and it's in the documentation, but it's basically that the left-hand column, the way you have to sort this in order for it to make sense visually, is sort it by the left. So let's go and do that. So go into the menus controller, go up to the index view. In our paginate property here, let's choose order, and we can just specify that it's LFT, and we want to sort it ascending. And once that's done and we reload, notice what happens to the admin menu. So we can move it down further, and now it will go where we are expecting it to. Just while we're at it, just so it's a bit more obvious, let's make a change to our, so let's do that, alert success, go into our elements, success, and that works. So let's have a look again, just so that it's obvious. We're going to move this one down. Okay, menu's been moved down. So we now have a working sort of tree view. Let's look at some of the challenges and things that you might run into as you work with it. Now remember that if we've got a delete and we've got a remove and delete option. So remember, when you delete, if something's a parent, it deletes all the children with it. So let's go back here and run our seed to bring our table back to square one. If we do a remove and delete, notice what happens. Now there's an issue here that I don't understand, if it's me not understanding how it works or there is a bug or something. But I've just removed the parent, which was the admin menu, and this has been re-homed, if you like, to the parent level. So if we have a look in the edit menu, you can see parents is null, and so there's no parent. So this is the top level, but it's still saying level 1. Now within the documentation, there's a thing called recover. So you could add your records into a table and then enable tree view and then get it to build all the left and right entries and all those sorts of things using this recover feature. But let's just use that to fix the problem that we're seeing. So we go, what are we doing? It was remove and delete we need to go to. So when we remove and delete, it doesn't seem to be working properly. So we're going to now this menus and do recover. Now what that will do is it will, let's put our records back so that we can see it working. Reload. Now what that will now do, if I do a remove and delete, which is this, notice what happens. When it does a recover, it loops through the entire table and fixes everything that's wrong. Now that's one way of fixing a table that's become inconsistent. Maybe someone's deleted a record while not using the tree behavior or something like that, and you need to rebuild so all your left and right values are correct. But that's one way to do it. Let's have a look at another way, and also that a gotcha that just got to double check this. here we go, deleting nodes here. So the deletion of it nodes is based off left and right values. This is important to note when looping through various children of a node for conditional deletes. Now what it's basically going to say is that as soon as you do a delete on one thing, the entire tree relabels itself, and you're then going to run into problems because you're not picking up the latest descendant and all those sorts of things. So let's have a look at that. So I'll grab this and right, we just need to make our tree again, and we're not going to recover it. That does do the job. It does make that level look correct, but I'm now going to grab all the children for this one I'm deleting. So grab the ID, and we need to specify this menus, and we're going to grab all the children for this, and then after we successfully delete, we're going to do a for each of the descendants as children, and what we're going to do is go grab the entity, child entity, and go this menu get child ID, and with that child entity I want to specify the level is whatever the child level was -1, because it's always going to move up 1 when you delete 1 in the hierarchy. And then I want to go this menus save and save the child. Now this is a challenge. Now with all being there, this will work. So let's have a look. So what we're doing is we're saying, let's reload. So remove and delete and go OK. And it works perfectly because as soon as we put the all in here, it says fetch the results, and it works. But let's see an issue where you could really get into trouble, where it lazy loads evaluates the query. So reload here and then remove and delete this, and then notice what happens. It hasn't deleted and hasn't updated one of the children. It's still saying, so it's changed this one, and that is because it's evaluating this query here, which is after you've deleted the parent, and all sorts of weird stuff are going on. So always make sure that you specify to return the results of the query or to array before you actually do the delete and do the remove, because it reparents everything at that point and it'll be incorrect for here. So that's just something to keep in mind. There is a nice warning here. So tree order, it reorders everything every time you do delete. So see here, you will need to reload existing entity objects if you need an accurate shape of the tree. That's just something to really keep in mind. So that's two ways of handling that. What seems to be a bug, if you ask me. It should, when you remove and delete, it should reorder everything properly and re-level things, but it doesn't. So that's workaround. So now that we've got our tree structure and it all seems to be working okay, let's start by transferring all this into our menu. Now this is going to be, I suppose the word might be kludgy, but it is just a way of working with tree data anyway. But let's have a look. So first thing we do, let's open up our Navbar. So we need a representation of this table in order to be able to create this menu. So what we start with is a query to that table to get a formatted list of nodes and their children. So we don't want to do it in the menus controller, but if you have a look at the top of menus controller, you notice that it extends the app controller. So this app controller is the perfect place to put this. So doing that, just go public function. Now you've got two before filters. You've got before filter and you've got before render. Now before filter is run before the action is run in the other controller, and before render is, let's have a look at the help. It says called after the controller action is run. So this before render will run after the controller action. In other words, any one of these actions, it'll run after it. But it's really up to you whether you want to use before filter or before render. But let's just use before render. So what we need to do is we need to get hold of the menu table. And in a controller, you have immediate access to fetch table, and you want to get hold of the menus table. Now, what is that? That's just basically your table class with table stripped off it. So just put in that first bit and you get hold of your table. The next thing we want to do is we want to get hold of our menus, run a query. So we go menu table, and we want to go find. Now the specific type of find we want is a threaded find. And let's grab all of that. And then we want to set that to the view. Now I've deliberately made a mistake here just to show you why you need to be careful. So if I go reload, notice that suddenly things have disappeared. And the reason for that is, if we have a look at our variables, that variable menus is already being used in this view, and I've overwritten it. So what I need to do is change this to something really obvious. So let's now set that to the view, and if we go variables here now, we can see that we've got that value correctly in the view. Now the challenge that I find, this is annoying, so I'm going to just fix that, is if we go to vendor directory, so the problem I'm complaining about, which I haven't mentioned yet, is that I have to click this button to see variables. I don't want to do that. I know this is a low resolution screen. Normally you'd see everything, but let's go and fix that. It's just a better development experience. So let's go to vendor, CakePHP, and we're looking for DebugKit, and we're going to SRC. Now notice in SRC we have a toolbar service here, and the toolbar service has a default configuration. It's saying these are the panels I want you to show. They're all set to true. So I'm going to change that by going into my application, file, src application, finding my debug kit. Now you could do this a number of places. You could put this statement in to your Bootstrap if you wanted to, PHP, but here it's sort of close and obvious what you're doing. So what you want to do is write debug kit.panels and enter in, let's put that in brackets first, yep. Right, and now I'm going to turn off a number. I've never used mail, not really. I can look in composer.json for packages. History is useful. I don't use includes very often. Environment, yeah, it's good to see environment variables. Log I use. Timer, never use that much. Definitely use SQL. Yeah, it's good to know requests. Yep. So that looks like everything. Let's go have a look now as we refresh and notice now that we've now got a panel selection that is easier to click on. So that's good. Now the next step we want to do is, as we said, we've got the menu tree showing up in our view. Now we want to go and put that into our navbar. So in our navbar, there's certain things that we want to keep and certain things that we want to throw away. But one thing we do want to do is start to CakePHPize it. So if I go, what am I? Right, so I'm trying to reproduce this this link. I'm going to use the CakePHP HTML helper and just say the name of it. Well, it's going to be menus, and we could use that from configuration or something, but just let's hard code it. Now, to get the root directory of your application, you can use just that /, and then finally, let's set our configuration options, which we want navbar, and I think that's everything. So that's our first change, and it's actually going, the root of the application is currently this display page, but let's change that as well and go find this and just make it to be menus, action, index, and get rid of the extra argument and reload. And now we need to, I might leave the home link there. That would be something you might normally do. So we'll leave the home link there, but we'll make it CakePHP happy. So I change this. We want to keep all our nifty ARIA stuff and just, and that's good, and I think that's right. Let's comment that out. So that's something else replaced, and we want to change that to home. Alright, so that's good. Now let's get busy building our links up. Now when we give ourselves a menu tree, what is returned is a bunch of, when you iterate this, currently you can't see that, but it's going to be a bunch of entities. So we can use entity methods to do some checking to see what we'd like to include. So what I'm going to do is, after the things I want to keep, I'm just going to go PHP, and then I'm going to say, all right, I want to loop through our menu tree, and each item is going to be, I'll call it a menu, and then I'm going to say, well, if that menu and this is an entity method, has value for whatever's in children, then do something for that. Otherwise, do something else, and then once you've finished, end the for each loop. Okay, so it might be helpful to see visually what's in MenuTree so that you understand what's being displayed. So let's do that. App controller, dump and die MenuTree. Let's see it in an array. That's probably easiest. So this is what we're working with to loop through. So we've got top level entities as parents, and then we've got anyone that has children will have a children key, and then there'll be entities as children of that, and that could nest all the way down to as many levels as you want. Okay, so that's what we're working with. Now that brings a thought into play. So it says threaded. Well, yeah, we might wait and see if we've run into any problems so we can fix them, so it's obvious why we've run into the problem. But let's go back to our navbar now. So we're saying if this is a menu that has children, we want a drop down arrow, a drop down. So we're going to grab this code here and create a drop down list here. So if it's got children, here's our drop down list. If it doesn't have children, we just want it to be, that's weird. Feels like I've got a sticky key. Normally that would, I wonder. Yeah, every time that's interesting. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going. We've got a disabled option here as well. So we need to handle whether something's disabled or not as well. Okay. And there was, yeah, and a header row. Good. So let's keep going. I wonder if that's something to do with reloading the window. Let's double check. For some reason I can't. That's better. Something was amiss, but it's not now. All right, so let's go back to this. So we're saying that if, let's make a double check. Okay. Double click. All right, so we've got our drop down here. Yep, let's keep going. So every time something has children, what we want to do is give it this top link, which is going to be, again, let's copy that again, another one of these. And the class for this one is dropdown navlink dropdown toggle. Hang on. That's correct there. And I've got an ID and a whole bunch of values here. So we want to remove area current is page. Don't need that. Now, because we're going to potentially have multiple ones of these, we'll go menu ID to make it unique. And we now need to specify that each one of these has the correct HTML properties, I suppose you might call it, applied. And we definitely don't want that to be generic, so we want it to be menu name, and then we want menu URL, and let's reload. So that's good. So now we can get rid of drop down and reload. Good. And now we need to flesh out our submenus here. So that's this stuff here. So we need to make a change here as well. So how do we do that? We might do this nav drop down, and we want to use menu ID, and let's double check that they're correct by inspecting. So we've got nav drop down 1 and then navbar drop down 1. Good. All right. So there we now get to our next thing, which is we want to loop through the children. So the next thing is, we know there's already children because we've checked for value. So we go for each menu children as child menu, loop through, and let's do a little bit of let's check if it's disabled. If disabled, if child menu disabled, then return disabled. If it's not, do this. So for each, and let's make that n for each. Okay. So what we're wanting is this. So we want li and we want this HTML link, and we use a child menu name, child menu URL. And let's go to another line and then set up our class, and it's got to be a drop down item. And from there, we're pretty much getting close. Let's have a look. So we've got add menu, list menus there. Now let's have a look at if it does not have children. Oh, before we do that, let's get that. So we want, let's do another if statement. PHP if child menu divider before. So we're checking the database to say, hey, we want dividers before this menu item. Just plonk that in instead of doing nothing. Okay, so divided before, if that, da da da. Okay, finally, we want to create whatever the case is for just our top level menu items. So we notice it's a little bit different. So we go menu name, menu URL, and then we want class is not a nav item but a nav link, and finally let's comment that out. Okay, now we want to check for whether something's disabled or not. So if it is disabled, we want to disabled. Let's disabled. I'm sure there'd be some nicer ways to do this, but without leaving a blank line there, but let's just do this. Okay, so we want our disabled link to be actually disabled, so let's do that check. So if menu is disabled, and do disabled here as well. Let's see if that now works. Yes. Okay, so that now adds ability to disable links. Let's get rid of this other stuff that's in the navbar that we're not using. And finally, we have so we've got homeworks, we've got add menu is not happy, so we're going to have to fix that. We've got external URL working. We've got disabled link as being a disabled link. So you could do that. I think that will work. We disable the link and submit. And really, yeah, that works. So it's disabled it at both levels. And what we haven't done, and let's now start looking at some really problematic sort of stuff. We want to be able to activate and deactivate things. So let's have a look at that. So in our app controller where we're doing our fetch, we want to do something like this. So we say where active active is true. Goodness, sorry about that. I'm getting driven crazy by my typos. So what we now find here, if we go edit, and this is a big problem with the tree view, is notice what's happened there. So I've disabled the admin menu, and it's basically given us the two submenus. We've disabled the top level menu, but it's enabling the menus underneath, even though the top level menus, if you disable that, you should disable the children, shouldn't you? That doesn't really make sense. So you can, at the way it works now, it does kinda do the job, doesn't it? But it does this weird behavior for the tree view thing. So we're going to now just have a little bit of a look at getting around those sorts of issues. So let's do a couple of things. So we're going to say where. So if we wanted to make sure, if we had, let's say we had 3 levels, so we want level is less than 2, so it's 0 and 1 we're interested in. So if we had multiple levels, but we wanted to filter, Another challenge, let's have a look at another challenge. We'll just reseed the database now and reload. And again, we'll move this admin menu down and see what happens. See, again, we've got this issue where we've moved the admin menu and it's not working, so we need to specify an order clause here. And what was the specific order clause? Always has to be ordered by the LFT field to make sure it's correct. So let's reload that and we can see that's fixed another problem. Now we have an issue where we want, so the issue is, let's have a look at this edit. We want to disable the top parent and it's not include the, so I'm going to copy and paste some confusing code that took me ages to figure out, but let's just do this. So what I'm going to do is take, this is a recursive function that basically says if you see an inactive menu, just skip and don't include all the children in the output. So now I'm going to go, alright, so I'm going to grab that here, menu tree, and then I'm going to filter it. Now this may not work, this may end in tears, but let's have a look and reload. And it's not active, and it's still showing the children. That won't work because, right, so let's get all of them. Isn't that interesting? You can't figure something out until you really look at it. So what I'm doing there is I need to return the positive, I need to return everything, and then I need to loop through, obviously, and just make sure. Now this code here, if we have a look at this code, so re-enabling admin, so if I go active and it shows back up, but this code here just is so that if I disable both of the children, the parent won't show up. So it basically means that it won't show an empty parent and it won't show a child of an inactive parent either. So apologies there for the conniptions, but that's basically a anonymous recursive function, and to get it to work you need to pass a reference into this variable so you can call it again. But anyway, that's just another problem with the using the threaded and that sort of view. Now I've got one final thing that we might want to fix so that it works. And here's where we can use CakePHP helpers. And you might want to do this for yourself one day. So bin cake bake a helper, and we're going to call it the menu helper. And when we bake a menu helper, it goes into view, src view helper, and there's the menu helper. Now with this particular helper, I'm going to I want to extend another helper. So I'm going to extend HTML helper, which is the CakePHP HTML helper. Now when we do this, let's go back to our root here. We need to activate the helper. We need to sort of to make use of it. So we're going to change our navbar. So let's go p navbar, and let's just find and replace this with our menu helper. and so we're in the Navbar, so we need a menu. Now it's going to start complaining about things straight away. Don't know if this is going to fix it. Reload. Yeah, it does. So that default config needs to be inherited from HTML-helper, otherwise you've just wiped the normal configuration out. Now what we want to do here, at the moment it's using the HTML-helper's link method, as you can see here. We're going to interrupt that by doing public function and link, and let's just auto-complete that. And now what we want to do, we want to get the link method from the HTML helper and just return that. So we're now using that link method. And what our issue is that we're being passed these link methods a URL that's basically in the format of this. So we've got controller and then action, and we want to handle that. So firstly, let's just see if we're being passed a URL that is a URL. So let's skip. If it's not, let's keep going if it is. So if it's not a URL, then we want to do a check if it does contain a needle. What's the needle? So that's around the wrong way. We're looking for that, and we're saying if we find a controller action, we want to then specify that we want to explode we want to use that as a separator, and we want to get that, and then we want to set the URL to be controller action there. Now, does that work? Let's reload. And what we should be seeing is that now we've converted our list menu and our menus add into a cake URL. You can see that they're now working. So that works. What else can we do? Well, we've got a nested if here, and we don't really need that. So we want to say if it's not a URL and it's got a colon in it, then split it apart and give us what we need. Now with this, the way that works, we can also, let's create another with it, and we go edit menu, and we can do this. We can say menus edit, and I'm not sure what the numbering are, but we can do that. And yes, there isn't a number 5, so we can go, we want to make that active too, don't we? And so there we have the ability to edit a menu. So there we have a lot of different options there. Of course, once we have everything configured, we can move everything around, up and down, do what we'd like, using the very useful tree behavior.